Welcome to the ImpactWayv Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Serber, and it's a pleasure to be joined today by the President Dana Spain of the Volumetric Building Company, as well as the VBC Giving Foundation. Dana, first of all, could you tell us about the VBC Giving Foundation?
Sure. Hi, Mark. It's nice to be here today. The VBC Giving Foundation's mission is quite simple, and that is to provide safe, resilient, respectable housing for our most vulnerable populations so that everybody can have a safe place to live and be proud of where they live.
That's amazing, and it's such a great mission. And I know that right now your flagship project is Veterans Village. Can you please tell us about Veterans Village?
Sure. Veterans Village is our pilot project in Philadelphia's Frankfurt neighborhood. It is a 47-unit apartment building with green space, a beautiful mural on the side that's dedicated to the 5 branches of the service, a community space. So it is built as a market rate apartment building, but it is affordable housing specific to our veterans.
And is this something that could be replicable and scalable across the country?
That's the whole premise here, Mark, is that what we've created is really a template, not only in architectural design and shop drawings for a modular structure and an apartment building, but also how to finance it, how to raise money for it, how to refi it, how to look for tenants and put in criteria for what those tenants need to meet to live in the building. It is very specifically made so that anybody with land and the volition to build for affordable housing can come to us, and whether it's built under the VBC Giving Foundation flag or whether it's just built in partnership, we can help them succeed in building affordable housing.
And affordable housing, of course, is just the start. There's still so many more resources that veterans and those who are looking for affordable housing need. What are those other resources, and how is VBC Giving Foundation working to help supply those as well?
Well, that's a really good question, Mark, and I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of homeless advocacy programs, especially if they're run by government agencies, think that the beginning of the end of someone's journey from homelessness or housing transition is to put them into an apartment or, in some cases, a hotel or motel room. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There really needs to be wraparound resources. The people that we're working with in all of our vulnerable populations, whether they be seniors or children aging out of the foster care system, single female heads of household, and especially our veterans, they have needs that are not just 4 walls and a pillow. They really have issues, and those are the reasons mostly that they're homeless or in transition in the first place. And so those resources are very important. They can range from anything from, we take a mind, body, and spirit approach to the programs that we offer and the resources that we offer. So depending on the population that we're working with, we'll offer financial literacy programs, job fairs, career counseling, peer-to-peer counseling, fellowship, book club, yoga classes, self-defense courses, really a myriad of resources that allows people to thrive in their communities and not just have a box to live in.
And that's fascinating. Those resources, are they through VBC, or do you partner with other entities in order to be able to provide those resources along with the housing?
Right. So we partner with a lot of organizations. In the veteran space, they're considered VSOs, or veteran service organizations, that are specific to veterans issues and veterans needs. But we also partner with communities, and for resources like job training and education. We partner with community banks for our financial literacy programs. We partner with people in the community who are interested in our programs, such as yoga instructors or chefs who come in and do cooking classes and how to shop and eat healthy on a budget. So it's really, the whole village concept is just that. It's a village within itself, and the camaraderie of people in the same basic place in their lives and the issues that they're working with and dealing through, but also in community response to the people offering the programs and the resources.
Affordable housing for veterans and for other vulnerable populations has been a big thing in the US for years. Why has it never found kind of a permanent solution? And what is it this time around where we begin to feel that a solution can be more permanent?
Okay, a tricky question. And I would say that a lot of affordable housing is not affordable to build, and therefore it's not affordable to rent. It also has a lot of strings attached and hoops of fire to jump through, because mostly it's attached to city, state, and federal funding. And that comes with an awful lot of strings and an awful lot of rules, most of which are arbitrary. And so real estate developers like myself, I'm a real estate developer in my for-profit world, we are turned away from building affordable housing because it's more effort than it's worth, and it really doesn't have the outcome that we would want as real estate developers. The other is that for some reason, federal agencies like to throw money at a problem, but they don't actually build anything. I'm not sure if it is because they don't know how to build housing, but as a real estate developer, that's what I do. I build housing. So what we look at is how do we do a cost-effective, efficient model that can be replicated across the country and eventually across the world, and how do we finance that model outside of low-income housing tax credits and other give-me's by government agencies. Nothing against LIHTC tax credits, but they're very competitive and they add a lot of layers of obstacles. So for this particular project, what we wanted to do was bypass all of that and get it built as quickly as possible to show that it can be done. We at VBC Giving Foundation cannot do it alone. There are literally hundreds of thousands of affordable units that are needed across our country for veterans, seniors, and other vulnerable populations. We can't do it by ourselves. So what we did was come up with a template. We'll build a village a year, but we're really looking for partners across the country and then eventually globally to come forward and say, I have the volition and maybe the land and maybe the money or maybe the passion. And we just need a point in the right direction, and we'll help you build the units that are necessary to house these folks. There's a lack of human aspect, I think, that when we talk about homelessness or housing insecurity, that we're not really looking at the human aspect of it. These are people. These are somebody's sons and daughters and uncles and aunts and grandfathers and grandmothers. And we don't look at the individual and their needs. We treat them, unfortunately, like numbers and just say, okay, well, here's a bunch of people living in a tent. Let's put them in a hotel room. It's really not stepping back and understanding what they need in housing and how to build that housing. So that's what we're here to do, educate and help others join us in affordable housing.
And Veterans Village is the flagship project. Where else are you looking to expand or go to next to build the next village?
Well, that really depends on need and volition. So the need is across the country. You see, for example, in California, their homelessness numbers, and this is an amalgamation, their homelessness numbers are about 161,000 people in the state are homeless, and that does not count housing insecurity. And housing insecurity could mean that people are living in shelters or transitional housing, they're living in their cars, they're couch surfing, but 161,000 people are literally living on the streets. How do we address that, right? So California is definitely a big focus for us, especially because we have a factory in California where we could build the modules and have the housing. But any place that has a concentration of need, and that's mostly in urban environments. So we're building in Philadelphia, we're looking at Baltimore, we're looking at rural Pennsylvania, we're looking at California, we're looking in Texas, we're looking outside of Chicago. And I just was contacted today by somebody in Florida, outside of Miami. We've been contacted by people here in Arizona. So the need is great. And as long as we can service that need, that's where we're going to look.
There are obviously so many causes in the world, especially as we get towards holiday giving and people are saying, I want to give, where should I give to? What is it that motivates you personally to take up this particular mantle?
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, that this is the third charity that I founded. So this is not my first rodeo. And what we're very mindful of is that people who are donating, whether they're donating $5 a month or they're donating $5,000, right? They want to make sure that their money is actually going to the programs and the projects and not going to some kind of overhead and salaries and benefits and bloated budget and travel and this and that. So 98 cents on a dollar goes directly to our programs and projects. And that differentiates us from lots of other charities where people could choose to send their money. For me personally, this came about because my second charity, called Haven Women, was a small but mighty homeless transitional shelter for female veterans. We put our ladies through a very rigorous enrichment program for 6 to 9 months. They're ready to graduate, make good choices, go out and be productive citizens. And then government agencies were putting them in abject squalor. The apartments that they had very little choice, but those that they had to choose from were, really abhorrent. You would not want to put our heroes, you wouldn't want to put any human being in these conditions, in drug-infested areas with black mold, not with full suites of appliances. It was just maddening. And I saw a lease come across my desk for one of our ladies who had worked very hard to turn her life around. And she was being put in a bad neighborhood where I know that she was going to backslide and start making bad decisions, and the whole cycle would repeat itself. So at the time, I took the idea and the concern to my dad, who was a U.S. Army veteran. He has since passed. And he said, look, you're a doer. Let's not talk about it. Let's do something about it. And I build housing. So he said, let's build an apartment building and start putting people where they can feel good about where they live and feel proud about where they live, and give them a hand up as opposed to a hand out. And that's where this whole vision was born. We're lucky to have the backing of volumetric building companies, which is a global modular manufacturing and construction company. And they know how to design and build buildings. So that's what we're doing.
Well, first of all, Dana, thank you so much to your dad for his service and everything he's done for our country. And you brought up something that's really interesting, because as you said earlier, it's not just about putting somebody into a house. It's about the right house, the right environment, the right resources. So once there is the housing and they have the right resources, how can we work to best ensure that these veterans or these vulnerable populations not only get the right housing in the right areas, but are then properly introduced to, so that they meld well with the greater community and become a part of that community?
Well, that's a bit of a sticky wicket, because what we're building is independent housing. So we're housing adults, people over 18, and they can make their own choices, good and bad. But we will barrage them with lots of positive opportunities and resources so that they can make good decisions. One of the central aspects of the village concept is that we're putting people together, whether they're veterans or seniors or kids aging out of foster care, who basically, everybody has their own issues, but basically have the baseline of the same issues. And they're not in scattered sites. When they're having a bad day or they're thinking of making a bad decision, they have 40 different neighbors that they can knock on their door and say, hey, I'm having a bad day, or I'm dealing with this obstacle or issue. And I would liken it sort of to an AA program, except not necessarily for addiction recovery, just for general life obstacles. When people come out and separate from the military, they're coming home with potentially PTSD. In our female veterans, we see military sexual trauma, which is on the rise. 1 in 4 of our female veterans report having been a victim of military sexual trauma, which is a type of PTSD. They may not know how to open a bank account or reconcile a checkbook or put together a household budget and pay bills, because they're not taught that in the military. For our seniors, it could be that they're having a bad health day, that they are running out of food or meds or can't get to the grocery store or to urgent care. So having people around them that are dealing with the same life issues gives them truly a lifeline to keep them making positive choices and to keep them in their homes. In terms of community engagement, that really comes down to each individual community and municipality but also the manager of the building who is on site to make sure that all of the programs and resources available in those communities are being taken advantage of.
That's excellent. Definitely something where, it goes both ways. The community needs to make sure that they're doing the right things to bring them into that community, to make them feel welcome, to make them feel a part of it. So this is your third nonprofit that you've started. And whether it's with VBC or whether it was with one of the first two nonprofits, can you share with us a moment or a story where you realized how your work had affected someone's life and that was kind of an assurance? You're like, yeah, this is worth it. This is every single reason why I do what I do.
May I give you two?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first one is from Philadelphia Animal Welfare Society. That was the first, or PAWS. That was the first charity that I founded. And this was before I was engaged in military and veterans affairs. But we had a program that I started with a friend of mine through PAWS, and it was Pets for Vets, which is not service animals, which could be very, very expensive and have a long waiting list to get a service animal, but really just a companionship animal. So if a veteran came in, they could choose an animal that they bonded with, and the charity would pay the adoption fees and all of the medical expenses, and set them up for a year with food and anything necessary for that animal. And there was a veteran who applied to the program. He left with a magnificent little female pit bull. I think her name was Molly, and just a white, pink nose, just adorable pup. And he had been battling addiction, had been homeless for a time. And when Molly came into his life, it really gave him a friend and a companion. And about 6 months later, we got an email from him saying that when he had bad thoughts and thoughts of suicide, it was the fact that he had Molly, and Molly was depending on him to get out of bed and feed her and walk her and take care of her, that really made him take one step at a time and got him out of his darkest days. And so we knew that we were really onto something and really doing something great. And that when I founded Haven, some of our ladies had been homeless or in transition for years, and they didn't have a stable place to be. Haven is like a little sorority. It's a group home for 12 women. It's a sober environment. It's a very safe and secure environment. But ladies need to make good choices, and they need to attend a lot of enrichment programs. And I went to visit the house one day just to make sure that they had all of the supplies that they needed. And a young woman who had been separated from the military about 5 years was standing on the front step waiting for a ride. I introduced myself, and she burst into tears. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "I'm getting to see my children for the first time in 3 years because of this program. I have come so far, and I have now been allowed to see my children." So she was going to see her children on Easter for the first time in 3 years. And really, it was because of Haven and our enrichment programs and the environment that we offered that allowed her to do so. So we both cried a lot, and I'm not a big crier, but I have to tell you, it was very, very moving. So it's those kinds of stories and thousands other like them that let me know that, what I'm doing is what I should be doing. Everybody has a purpose. And as much as I have my for-profit businesses throughout the year, it has always been a passion of mine to give back to community. I get that passion from my parents, who instilled it in me at a very young age that when you're blessed to have what we have, it's necessary to bring people up with you and animals.
That's amazing. Yeah, and just as you showed there, the effect that animals can have on humans and really be healers and supporters for them is just incredible. So obviously, it's the holidays, and as somebody who's now on your third nonprofit and working with VBC Giving Foundation, can you explain why holiday giving is so important to philanthropies and why people should do it, not just because it's almost the end of the year and they can get some tax breaks off it, but can you explain what this influx of cash around the holidays means for nonprofits?
Well, I kind of think of us as I run my nonprofits the way I run my businesses. It's not tin cup philanthropy. Hey, here's my hand and I have a good cause. Please give me a dime. We don't run it that way. We run it as a business. And the fourth quarter, just like retail and hospitality, is really the most important to making sure that we have enough funding going into the new year. And it's really as simple as that. Obviously, people are in a generous spirit because it is around the holidays and they look around and think, boy, look at all that I have and look at what other people don't have. So it's a good time to have that conversation within a family and say, we'd like to give back and share all of our gratitude and blessings. What charity do we choose? And there's an awful lot of good ones. You know, there's big diseases, there's children's charities, there's environmental charities. It really comes down to the passion that lies within each family. And we know that our veteran community, for example, is built on the camaraderie of brothers and sisters in uniform. And so that's why people give, because they want to see that people that they served with, who they may not even know, have safe, resilient housing because they made it out of the military and they were able to live productive civilian lives. And they want the same for their brothers and sisters.
Well, that's a perfect example and a great way to help us understand holiday giving. So say I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second, Dana.
Okay.
Say it's the holidays. I have an extra $100 somehow, and I'm saying, ooh, there are so many causes, and I'm not sure which to give it to. And I run into you, and you have 30 to 40 seconds. Give me your elevator pitch as to why this $100 should go to the VBC Giving Foundation.
Well, the $100, $99.99 is going to go directly to the program, which is very rare in charitable circles. But you can also pick directly what you want it to go towards. So instead of just giving your money into the ether, you can say, hey, I'd like to furnish one of the apartments for the veterans because a house is not a home without a coffee maker and a couple coffee mugs. So I want my $100 to buy 2 Mr. Coffees and 2 mugs or 4 mugs. And we can make that happen specifically, as opposed to just giving it to a general fund and really not understanding what impact you've had.
I'm about to hand over my money if I could.
Well, you can go to VBCGivingFoundation.org. There's a big red donate button. It's very easy. And as you mentioned, it is tax deductible. So it's at the end of the year. And if you needed a little extra help with your taxes this year, it is tax deductible to the fullest extent allowed by law and your state.
Well, Dana, thank you so much for enlightening us about the VBC Giving Foundation, for the wonderful work you do. And we're so excited to continue to watch as Veterans Village comes up, and then to see where the other Veterans Villages are across the country, and can't wait to see them. And as you said, California, Baltimore, Florida, and wherever else. Again, just to reiterate, you can go to the VBC Giving Foundation .com and or .org rather. I apologize. VBCGivingFoundation.org, and I highly suggest that you click on the video that shows Veterans Village. It's really impressive and really exciting to see. Dana, thank you so much for joining us here on the Making an Impact podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.